Hello and welcome to the Watch Kaki channel, where we bring you all the good and honest watch reviews. In today's video, we are going to look at something that's quite different from the other watches review on my channel. Normally we've got Seikos, we've got a couple of divers here and there, Swiss divers and all that. But today we are going to take a look at this pair of Mondaine Swiss Railway Simply Elegance. So before we begin the video review, I'm just going to share with you how this video came about. Alright, so what happened last week was I got an email from one of my subscribers asking me, alright, the Watch Kaki, Andy, which is your most expensive watch? Alright, and I just found it pretty difficult to answer this question because I'm not comfortable sharing with you which watch is my most expensive and all that. So I can only tell you that I haven't entered the $20,000 zone, $20,000 zone yet. Okay, I'm a very broke, very poor guy, so I don't have the money to buy overly expensive watches yet, and I'm not very comfortable doing a state of the collection video or telling you which is the most expensive watch that I currently own. So instead, I'm going to share with you this review, and this is on the most affordable Swiss watch that I own. Alright, not just the most affordable watch, because I could just pick an AliExpress watch and tell you about it, or one of those Casios and all that, like $50 Casio, but I've decided to do something quite different, and this is a video on the most affordable Swiss made watch. And it's a good thing that I've got more than one, right? In fact, I've got a pair of these watches. All right, so the reason is obvious. Why did I buy a pair of these watches? All right, it's because I've got two wrists. All right, and it is very common for people to wear watches on both sides of the wrist. Okay, so that's why I've got a pair. So jokes aside, let's get back to the video review. And the Swiss Railway watch, what can I say? All right, it is an iconic watch face or watch style design. You will see this very frequently. All right, you know, in Singapore, if you take the MRT, you will see this clock face, this style design at the railway station, at the MRT stations. All right, and in recent years, that is, you know, Apple actually got into a lawsuit over this dial design. So this is iconic dial design from Mondaine, and I do hope I've pronounced it correctly. I think it is pronounced Mondaine and not Mondaine or something like that. And these watch dials, they've actually paved the way for many fashion brands such as Darrow Warrington or Barang. You know, all these brands, I would say they are a spin-off of this dial design. You know, they keep things very simple, indexes very simple, very little text on the dial, keep things very simple, use quartz movements and all that. So I dare say these fashion brands that I've mentioned earlier on, I think, you know, they sort of built upon the design. And the two watches in question today, they come from the same model line, the same family. This belongs to the Simply Elegant model line, and it is called Simply Elegant because these watches, they are very thin. I think in terms of quartz movements, you know, when it goes down to about 6 millimeters or so, I think they're considered really thin watches. So in case I've forgotten to mention the price that I paid for these watches, alright, so I bought them in late 2018, and I believe I paid no more than US dollars $200 for each one. So it was a total of under US $400 shipped to my door. Alright, again, I must tell you, I got a pair because I have nothing better to do. And of course, we have the bigger version. So this is marketed as the gents version. This is 41 millimeters, and this is marketed as the ladies version. This is 36 millimeters. Okay, so later on in this video review, we are going to see if these sizes, they actually work for this collection. Okay, now I've zoomed in a bit as I talk about the specification. So this is the 36 millimeter version, marketed as a ladies watch, 36 millimeters case size. Thickness or thinness is only 6.3 millimeters, right, from the base of the snapped-on case back to the top of the flat sapphire crystal, 6.3 millimeters. It's got a really large dial here. For a small watch, it's got a dial size of 31.5 millimeters, and lug to lug length is really short. I measured with my calipers, they are 42.2 millimeters, and that's really short. And yes, I would agree that this is a good size for a lady's watch. And the 41 millimeters version has got a slightly thicker case here, measuring at 6.9 millimeters from the base of the screw in. Alright, it's a screw in held down by 6 screws, case back, to the top of the flat sapphire crystal, 6.9 millimeters, and it's got a very big dial size of 36 millimeters, and lug to lug is 47.5 millimeters. But so both watches are mounted on some cheap mesh bracelets I got off AliExpress. Okay, now these watches originally came on some kind of sweet leather strap, which I ditched the moment I collected the watches. So as you can see from the dial printing at the 6 o'clock area, this watch is Swiss made. Alright, so Swiss made, you know, it carries a lot of prestige. Alright, when people think of Swiss made, they think of expensive watches, luxurious watches. Alright, so we'll see at the end of the video if, you know, this is indeed well made, this is indeed luxurious. It is Swiss made, Swiss brand, Swiss movement, some kind of Ronda quartz movement, of course. No date complication, 3-hander, it ticks. It also has got a low power indicator. I changed the batteries earlier this year, and that was after 3 years of usage. So these things never get worn very much. They, you know, stay in the house for the longest time. If they're lucky, they'll get worn once a year or once every 2 years. So in terms of case work and build quality, I would say these watches, they are built very well, very decent for the money. Typically, you can get these watches for about $250 these days off eBay or Joma Shop and the likes. But I think, you know, at this price point, the casework is still acceptable. All right, there's no obvious imperfection or any kind of rough edges or anything like that. So I would say it's pretty decent. I'm actually loving all these brush finishing. All right, this particular version that I've bought, they have a full brush finish on the case, so I really prefer this. Some of the Simply Elegant versions, they've got fully polished cases, so of course I've selected the brush version, and it's got a really small crown here with no grip or knurling of any sort. So it is also inscribed with the Mondaine logo, the capital M. Alright, I've just adjusted it so that you can see. This is nicely done, nicely, I don't know, it's attached or glued on to the crown. Very nice crown inscription there. And overall, I would say the build quality is pretty decent. Okay, so don't expect high water resistance for these thin watches. They typically use screw in or snap on case backs. So as a result, the water resistance is only 30 millimeters. So in terms of dial design, I think you really got to give it to Mondaine. Alright, so I don't know, I really need to find out the designer who came up with this design. So it is clean, it is simple, and it is legible, and I think it is timeless too. So I totally agree, this dial design here is iconic. Okay, you can't really argue with that. Okay, so you go everywhere, any country, if I show you this clock design, you will say, that looks like something at the railway station, at the train station, at the MRT station. So really, I do agree this is iconic. But in terms of workmanship or execution of the dial itself, at least for this series, I think there leaves much to be desired. So let's just look at why I say so. Alright, so if I show you the 41 millimeter version, you will see that there's a misalignment of the dial. Okay, so the crown is here. Okay, you can see that the marker is off. Okay, I know from the camera angle it's quite hard to tell for sure, but this 3 o'clock here, the entire dial here is off. Okay, so it's sort of like done this way, it's rotated about 1 or 2 minutes to the right. So I think it's really a shame. The 36 millimeter version here doesn't show much of a problem. Okay, but I think you know, there's quite a big misalignment of the seconds hand marker here. Okay, seconds hand itself. so it doesn't tick at the minutes correctly, and I was told that this is pretty common for many lower end Ronda movements. So the application of the markers, or at least the material use, I also think these things are quite a bit of suspect. Okay, they look like they're thin pieces of plastic, or are they just paper? I don't know, I'm not sure. Okay, the second hand definitely looks like a very thin piece of metal or plastic. Looks really cheap. Okay, and the markers, they look like they're applied, but you know, I don't know if the word is applied. They just look like they are glued on or pasted on in a very unsophisticated manner. So it really reflects the price point of these watches. Okay, so the dial design is great, but the dial execution is not so. So I have to zoom in even more to show you a quick size comparison between these two watches and the Zin 556, and I would rate this as a very standard watch size these days. 38.5 millimeters, I think would be a standard watch size for me. So this is the 36, and we're going to compare it against the Zin here. Okay, so you can see that despite being a 36, the dial size is actually bigger than the Zin. Okay, so overall it doesn't feel that small, but the thinness, you know, is obviously evident. All right, and it's got a really short lug to lug length. Okay, all right, so let's compare the Zin against the 41 millimeters. Okay, this one here, just take a look at the dial size. It's really big. Okay, makes the watch look even bigger than the specs would suggest, 41 millimeters, but it's got a dial of 36 millimeters, and it probably dwarfs the Zin in terms of looks straight on. But again, if you compare the thinness, you know for sure that this is very much thinner, and in terms of lug to lug, this is also slightly longer, the Mondaine that is. So in terms of wearability, I would think that the 41 millimeter version is a bit too big. Okay, so because of the case design here, so you will see that there's almost no curve. All right, so sure, the case is done in a dish or a pastel shade. Okay, it doesn't really feel very thick, not at all. 6.9 millimeters and made to feel thinner by the shape of the case, but the shape of the lugs here, they're almost straight, no curves at all. Take a look, there's a bit of lug gap, and especially over here there's a bit of protrusion, and you know, mixed with a really large dial. I think this is just a little bit too big. And on the other hand, the ladies version, the 36 millimeters version, is actually quite suitable for smaller wrists. Okay, just take a look, fits really well, a very short lug to lug of under 43 millimeters, and in fact, if you're buying this for a lady with smaller wrists, it may actually feel too big. So in terms of watch sizes for these two watches, I really think Mondaine, when they launched these watches in early, I think they launched this in 2012 or 2013, I think this is very much a fashion watch, okay, because this is 41 millimeters and this is 36, and they tend to go slightly on the bigger side for such designs. Okay, if you got a watch with such a big dial size, you don't really need such a big case. So if this one here is reduced to 38, 39, and this one here is reduced to 33 to 34, I think these will be the perfect sizes. As it is, both these watches are a bit too big for what they should be. So there you have it. That was my review of the most affordable Swiss watch that I own. Alright, so I really think that when it comes to Swiss made, alright, it doesn't always mean that it is high quality or super luxurious. Okay, so as seen in these two watches, I'll go as far as to say yes, I agree, these are more or less fashion watches. Okay, they look cool, design is good and all that, but in terms of functionality, in terms of wearability and all that, I do feel that they are, you know, sort of designed more towards fashion watches. Until the next video, this is the Watch Kaki from Singapore. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.